What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Forum, bringing you another rendition of Fenrir. So I do apologize for being on a little bit of a hiatus. Unfortunately, life has of course pushed me forward, so I've been focusing on things here. I moved and a bunch of other things, but outside of that, I am bringing you guys my most recent formula, my more recent take on Fenrir, so that way you guys can go ahead and jump into the format playing this list. I really do enjoy it. It does utilize some newer cards, of course, allowing us to basically get to what we need to, our level 3s and Cherubini, Bardiche. And it is also playing some other engines that do utilize what Fenrir typically are able to abuse. But we'll go and get into it. Definitely do enjoy the list. I hope you guys are enjoying the format. Such big changes since I've actually gotten back into it from Nats with the most recent list and some of the time changes. But they're good changes so far, and I don't think that it's been anything too crazy, but definitely enjoying the most recent emergency ban list. That helps a lot, especially with anyone who's been trying to play a little bit more of a casual deck. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. Hope you guys enjoy the list. But this is my formula on this format's Fenrir. All right, trading card game players, let's get into it. We'll start with the Phantom Knight stuff as usual. So we've got our 3 Torn Scale, 3 Silent Boot, 2 Cloak, 1 Gloves, and 3 Fog Blade. So typically we would play Greaves, but I'm not playing Greaves because I wanted to focus more on having starters with Torn Scale. Torn Scale can start our Fiendsmith engine, as we are bridging into the Fiendsmith engine with a rank 3. So it allows us to basically have more options for being able to get something started. So either this gets us to Cherubini or it's going to get us to our Fiendsmith engine. It was very important for us to play 3 here. The Greaves, it comes up sometimes, but unfortunately I would much rather have the consistency of starting to play than to have a way to extend. This was the better options for us, but I think it's pretty solid. Very typical, of course. 3 M-Seti, 1 Happy, and 3 King Sark. So we're playing this, nothing more, nothing less. We don't need Duamantiv. We're not playing number 90. We're just using Zombie Vampire. And I think it's important for us to just have, this as an engine that just gets us to our Phantom Knights. Also, it is very important as an engine just to push. A lot of times, depending on if you're under Fualos, this deck can actually set up a very minuscule board and still be able to do a lot just because we have access to Hand Trap. The deck inherently in engine also has access to Fog Blade. So sometimes you can actually just kind of get food, put a couple of these guys on board with a Fog Blade, 1 or 2 Fog Blades and a Hand Trap, and you're actually okay. I do like this engine a lot just because of that, because Fiendsmith just plays so heavy into Fua. It hurts a lot. So we want to make sure that we have something that's also low to the ground as well. Speaking of which, we've got our Fiendsmith engine. We are playing a full package as the decks typically were back in the day. There's only a few adjustments that I made that, even with the newer cards that came out, we don't necessarily need. I'm not playing the Fusion Lacrima just because the way the lines are conducted in this deck, we can't actually utilize it to its full advantage. We want to be able to have the Paradise set up every time that we're going to be using this package, because we don't want to necessarily draw these kind of cards. For anyone who knows, obviously, Phantom Knights typically do have a lot of bricks or garnets, so we are trying to minimize that as much as possible. So the focus on this engine is getting the Paradise Grave to set up for the Desiree, and then also obviously bridging and utilizing this engine for the same thing we do with the Phantom Knight. But I think that's pretty solid. I mean, you can cut a track, even the trap, if you really wanted to, get rid of a couple of garnets to bring the deck down from 50. I think that's pretty solid. The deck's only at 50, so I think it's actually okay. So we got our Spearword Terratop Takitan board, and we are pairing that with the Radiant engine. So we're doing 1 Eldum, 2 Swen, 2 Chant, and 1 MST. I kind of pair them together just because they're, obviously our extenders. They're free access to sub engine that allows us to basically get into Cherubini and also into our Fiendsmith line. So it's really great. It bridges us into our Phantom Knights and also bridges us into Fiendsmith. But this package has actually been overwhelming. I like it a lot. It actually does a lot more than I thought it would, just because of the fact that MST is actually not a bad card right now. I mean, it actually does quite a bit, especially considering a lot of the cards that a lot of these decks are ending on. It allows us to be able to answer things, especially against the Mitsu matchup. If they set the trap to negate, you're able to force a prayer sometimes with this. Depending on whatever deck you're playing against, even Draco Tail, you could have this to MST one of your own cards to remove it off the board if you needed to, resolve it, or you can just force their trap in general just by using this to target it. So it's very good, very niche, but it does do a lot, and this engine does a lot because all of these are 1-card starters. So we've got 3, 6, 8 1-card starters that basically get us there with very small amount of garnets, because even some of these cards kind of work in tandem with each other. Having MST Engrave allows you to summon them. You can search MST. You can also search monsters. So it's very good, and I actually have been enjoying it a lot. And then we've got our non-engine. We've got 12 non-engine cards. So we've got our 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Fua, 3 Droplet, and the 1 Called By. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we had some kind of utility to be able to deal with our opponent's cards. These are primarily our non-engine or going second cards. I think these are the most impactful outside of Bell that our deck can typically play or utilize. Ash just deals with the Fua. Droll is good against everything. Fua's Fua, Droplet, and Call By are just for the masses. So yeah, so that's the main deck. That's 50 cards. Again, some of the things that typically you could change non-engine, of course. I would honestly just keep the whole sub-engine here for the level 3s. I think it's amazing. Fiendsmith, you can probably drag down a little bit by taking out some of the spells and trap. King Sark, I wouldn't touch. And the Phantom Knight engine's obviously always preferential. You can put Wing or a Greaves in there, whatever you basically prefer as far as the Phantom Knight engine goes. But let's go ahead and get into the extra deck. So we'll go ahead and start here with our XYZ package. We've got our Arc Rebellion, the Raider's Knight to go into it, and the 2 Break Swords. So this is what we're playing as far as like the little Phantom Knight cards or package for the XYZs. We don't play anything else like Levier or anything. We want 1 for the setup of our board, 1 for the follow-up. So I typically do play 2. I don't like playing 1. I feel like it's too risky because if you have to use 1 in your turn 0, you don't have 1 for the turn 2 to be able to kill your opponent, because this has to be an XYZ summoned card when it's destroyed. So in order to utilize its secondary effect. But we're playing those 4. But then we're also playing Rusty Bardiche, SP Little Knight, IP Masquerena, and Cherubini. So this is our link package for the PK engine. Of course, we're setting up our Cherubini to get to our Bardiche, and then this is for our end board. Very typical, no Dark Charmer, just because the extra deck is actually tight because of the Fiendsmith stuff, which we'll get into here. So we've got Brass Djinn. This is for the bridge between Fiendsmith. So 2 level 3s allows you to make this, and then this gets you into Requiem. Then we're also playing Sequence for Desiree, Necroquip for Caesar. So again, this typical, Fiendsmith package. I mean, people are obviously opting to play the Lacrima fusion, but unfortunately in this, because we do play the Djinn and we do have a bridge, a lot of times if you do the bridge way to get to Fiendsmith, you're down in names. You actually have to shuffle in Requiem or Lacrima. So it takes that whole premise away from you from having the package during your turn to be able to, trap and send Desiree. And for me, I'd rather utilize all of my cards the way that I need them to. So if Lacrima, forces me to keep cards in deck that I typically would need for my end board, I'd rather just not do it at all. So this is what I went with, and I think it's perfectly fine. I've had no issues, and it's great. Obviously, you can sometimes get the draw for this because of the MSETI stuff. Same thing with like Fiendsmith Engraver if you happen to have it in hand. But Caesar's still very strong, obviously, and then the Desiree is very good as well, especially going going first, games 2 and 3. And then our last one is just a Zombie Vampire. It's what we use for the Horus package to bridge us into everything else. So that's it for the main and extra deck. I think those are pretty solid. I wouldn't change much else in the extra deck. Like I said, whatever you have that you might preferential that you might want to take out is perfectly fine. The side deck, very generic. Obviously, we know what the best cards really are in the format as far as what we utilize. So it's going to be very generic. Ghost Bell, I typically side out the Fuas going first for the Ghost Bell, so I have something for Bestials or anything else like that. Then we have Retaliating Sea, self-explanatory for those who pay attention to the current format. Same thing with Dark Ruler. Lancia I put in because this deck does have a very hard matchup against Malice. Whitebinder obviously is a very strong card, and so is Orcus. Orcus also can be a bit of trouble because the trap can banish when it negates. So if it hits the right card in this deck, depending like a Fiendsmith card or a PK card or even a Horus card, it can take certain cards out of the game for me, which can be detrimental. I've got my 3 evenly. I always enjoy playing evenly, especially in PK, just because once you clear out most of their board or all of their board, it gets very easy to just set up your own because this deck typically ends on like anywhere between 7 to 9 interruptions. But that's it. I wanted to showcase this for you guys. You guys can see the most recent list that I'm playing for PK in the format. I'm going to try to continue to put out more content, especially for PK and any other decks that I do enjoy playing in the current format. Anything competitive that I do find, definitely continue to share. But I'll definitely be looking to see what else we have coming up in the next sets and keep you guys updated on the Phantom Knight Goo. But as always, jump in the comment section below, share with me your guys' transformations and your formula, your take on the deck, so that we can discuss it and see where it's going here for the current format. But hope you guys are enjoying it. Thanks for the support as always, and I'll see you guys soon.